All right, welcome to the FantasyLabs podcast. Not to be confused with the Flex podcast or any other sort of offerings that we have. This is just sort of a general podcast where we're going to talk about a subject that I think is going to be fun to talk about and I think useful for you guys. The subject of this podcast is what to do when your favorite DFS sport is not in season. Some degenerates, maybe like myself, I won't comment on that further, play just about every DFS sport that there is out there. But I know some people, only play NFL or some people only play NBA, and that means that for part of the year you're going to not have any daily fantasy sports. But that doesn't mean that you should just completely forget about it until the next season. Strategies adapt, things adapt in those sports, real life leagues, and we're going to talk about those. What you can do in your off season. So no better guest to bring on than my man Adam Levitan. What's going on, dude?
I haven't been doing anything for about 2 months straight now, so I was happy somebody asked me to actually do some quote unquote work. I'm chomping. I'm ready to go to war.
Yeah, I like it. So this is obviously going to be a sort of evergreen type of podcast where we'll obviously have it on the site where people can listen to, and regardless of what your sport is in or off season, this will be sort of a broad thing, whether it's MLB, NFL, whatever. It'll sort of be an evergreen thing, but I want to be a little time sensitive here because I can't have a podcast with you and not get your take on Golden State Thunder.
And I actually thought, towards the end of even the regular season, I thought Golden State was not at the level they were at, even before Steph's injuries. There were games they were favored by 20, 21 points. It was just absurd late in the year where they were clearly running low on gas as they tried to get the record. So I thought that was like somewhat of a warning flag. And I don't know, man. You could make an argument that the Thunder have the two best players in the series. And I'm not a Steph Curry hater by any means. He's absolutely unbelievable. But Russ and Durant, when they are playing at the level they're playing at now, I think I'd rather have them than Steph Curry. And maybe I'd rather have Russ and KD over Steph Curry all the time too. I don't know. And I love Steph. He's unbelievable. But I don't think it's that shocking. And I don't know. I just think the Thunder are really, really good. When you have the two best players on the floor in the NBA, it's really hard to lose games.
Yeah, I mean, it's never really been a question of whether Russ and KD could do it. It's always been about the fringe guys for them. Ibaka's obviously been good. People thought he took a step back, but he's looked really good in the series. But it's the fringe guys. It's Dion all of a sudden,
right?
Probably I assume when you're talking the best two players on the court, I assume you're talking Russ and Dion, right?
Dude, I'm petrified that these idiots, the Colangelos, are going to sign Dion Waiters to a max contract with the Sixers, and the entire process is going to go out the window. I mean, that would just be like the most crushing thing ever. I would never support the Sixers if they signed Waiters. I mean, even if they signed Harrison Barnes to a max contract or like DeMar DeRozan, I would legitimately not want to be a fan anymore.
Yeah, the Harrison Barnes thing, I'm concerned about, but Dion is fair. I mean, if the 76ers signed Dion to a max contract, you're going to win championships a lot sooner than you would want to, right? You sort of want to slow play this.
Like the Colangelos might be so dumb that they just watch this series and legitimately think to themselves, Dion Waiters is worth the max contract. Like they might be thinking that as we speak right now.
I hear you. Real quick before we move on to this, actually, it'll be a good segue for this sort of podcast. Are you Team Simmons or you Team Ingram?
Come on. Just because a guy is skinny and can shoot doesn't mean that he's Kevin Durant, right? It's like people take these exceptions, these freaks. Like Drew Brees was really short. Russell Wilson was really short. So now that means that every short quarterback coming out of college now is going to be Drew Brees or Russell Wilson. It's just like these guys are total freak exceptions for every Kevin Durant who weighs 180 pounds, for every Drew Brees who's 6 foot flat. There's 1,000 people like me who are undersized and have no shot to be good at sports whatsoever. You know what I mean? So, I'm certainly on Team Simmons. I think in today's NBA, he'll be an excellent point guard. Like we see the Bucks going to Giannis at point guard and just, total freak. I could see Simmons doing the similar kind of things.
Yeah, I'm Team Simmons for sure. I like that call. So we'll move into our podcast. in the subject of what to do when your favorite DFS sport is out of season. That sort of transitions into the first thing I want to talk about is, whether the draft for whatever sport you're in. Obviously, the draft is a lot more important for NFL and NBA than it is for MLB. And there's no draft for PGA, obviously. But yeah, so we have sort of niche, I guess not niche things, but we have things that aren't really in the DFS realm, but are in the sports realm, but that really affect it. So we have, the draft. Even in NBA, we have the lottery, which sort of ties in with that. And we have free agency that starts in the summer for NBA, and NFL has already started. But I guess my question, Adam, is for you is, I know that you really are ingrained in this. Part of it is because it's part of your job, but also it seems like you're really personally interested in it. Is your personal interest in it just as a sports fan, or do you look at these things to get some DFS value in the future for it?
Everything I do is for DFS value in the future. Like, I'm not sure if there wasn't fantasy, I'm really not sure if I would watch the NFL. Like, that's terrible to say. Like, I'm really not sure if I would. But so yeah, I think that following sports, following the sport you want to be good at all year round is a huge, huge, huge advantage. Like, understanding who the depth charts all the way down to the bottom is a huge, huge advantage. And knowing, like, well, the thing about the NFL and to a certain extent the NBA is, like, how coaches are going to use guys is so massively important. And you can get clues from that based on the draft and free agency. Teams have what looks like a huge hole at running back, but they don't address the position in the draft or free agency. Like, we have to be aware of that. And of course you can catch up on all that or try to catch up on all that later, but I think it's just a huge advantage to follow it all year round. And, when I was at Roto World, I always thought that was, one of our biggest advantages was that we had football writers who only did football all year round, like 4 or 5 of us. Just, we never thought about any other sport. And it's just a huge, huge, huge edge to understand that stuff. Like, as soon as Tyler Eifert goes down, it's like we know everything about Tyler Croft, and everybody else is trying to kind of scramble and figure out who this dude is. So yeah, I think it's important, and I understand not everybody can do it. Like, by some miracle of God, it's my job to do this. I'm obviously really lucky. For other people, I think you can catch up later, but if you can follow it, I think it's a pretty big edge.
And it seems like it's, especially for a sport like NFL, where it's already sort of a small sample size anyway, where insights have to deal with that. DraftKings and FanDuel have to deal with the fact that they can't just necessarily be crazy with their salaries or like wait to slow play them like NBA does, where you have 80 whatever games, and MLB where you have 162 games. So NFL I think is a little bit different, where I think being year round, you can really, really get an edge early in the year, right? So like these first couple of games, the people who pay attention potentially for these first couple of weeks could be really profitable. And I think maybe an example is, and I'm curious about your thoughts on this, is the Cowboys selecting Ezekiel Elliott. I know that a lot of people, including guys on our sites like Bales, who is a Cowboys guy, have strong opinions on it. But that sort of selection and knowing the draft and knowing how that's going to affect the Cowboys really is going to make a difference in DFS. Would you agree?
Oh, for sure. And, but that's like Elliott, like everybody knows Zeke Elliott's going to have a big, big year. Like, I think his ADP in MFLs right now is like back of the first round. You know what I mean? And okay. Hopefully DraftKings and FanDuel understand that and price him accordingly for week 1. So, yeah, I think some of the deeper stuff, like the Dolphins, they selected Kenyon Drake in the 3rd round, but they were unable to address running back in free agency. And Kenyon Drake is more of a passing back. So, obviously Jay Ajayi is a guy that I think will get, 15, 17 touches right out of the gate in week 1. And he could be like 4,000 on DraftKings or something. I really have no idea. And I think that's the kind of stuff that people might not be aware of. Following like the preseason, Tyrod Taylor last year, we talked about him a ton. People inside the bubble talked about him a ton, and they were like, Adam, don't give away you're going to tell everybody about Tyrod Taylor. And he's like 4% owned week 1 at home against Indy, which was like the best spot ever for him. And he didn't smash value, but he was min salary and he had a really good game. So, yeah, I think, some of the under the radar guys, the situations are certainly worth following really closely.
Yeah, and I think especially for a sport like NFL, one of my things that I was thinking about is there a way? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of changes with draft picks and free agency, coaching changes, all of this stuff. That's just sort of news outside of the season. Can you deal with it just sort of in a week before the season crash course? But I would venture to say, and I curious your thoughts on this as well. There's just so much in the NFL. There's so many players, and even just like coaching changes with how many schemes there are. It's just such a complex, dynamic sport. It's if you don't follow it year round, I don't think that you can just catch up in the week before.
Oh, I would feel so uncomfortable trying to catch up. It would be just overwhelming. And yeah, we could do podcasts just on we could have a podcast on coaching changes and how that affects players, or we could have a podcast whole hour podcast on free agency moves, or draft takeaways, or OTA news. It's just constant. But like you said, it's a dynamic sport, right? And that's kind of while I've been playing PGA for the last 2 months or so, it's so different where you don't follow anything. Not only do you not have to really follow any news, these guys don't affect each other at all. Nothing affects these guys except for the data, which is why I think PGA has been relaxing and stress-free, but also I haven't crushed it or anything, but I think it has the potential to be really profitable just by having really good data like we have on Labs, because you don't have to know how X guy affects Y guy, because they don't affect them at all. But with football and basketball, you have to know some stuff about dynamics, like you said.
Yeah, obviously in PGA, there's no correlations that you have to worry about. Yeah.
It's just no news. There's no late scratches. There's no.
It's nice, right?
No, it's it's almost like being on vacation. You could grind PJ hard and still be on almost vacation. But yeah, it's just so different. And yeah, the NFL and NBA, understanding the sport, people are always going to try to beat it completely with data and models. I think there's always going to be room for people who follow and understand football and basketball in DFS.
Yeah, and you mentioned you play in PGA. You have done some videos for us, some screencasts lately about your venturing into the PGA DFS world, and that's actually I had sort of came up with the subject. And it was sort of immediate that I wanted to have you on as the guy to talk with me about this, because you were doing that with PGA. And I think it's always sort of interesting, when you have a guy like yourself who is very ingrained in NFL and NBA. And then I'm always sort of curious when a guy like that sort of ventures into another DFS sport and just sort of starts from scratch and learns it, because there's different strategies and there's different things that you could potentially learn from PGA or learn from a different sport that you could potentially apply to NFL and NBA. So I'd sort of like to talk about that now.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just ask you broadly, what has been your thoughts about PGA as a DFS sport? Is there really anything that's standing out to you that has made you a potentially better future NFL and NBA DFSer?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Don't you think that there is some advantage in PGA in not really knowing anything, having no biases whatsoever? Literally, I build my model for PGA and, I do my course history and I look at course characteristics and I listen to you guys on the podcast and I build my model. And then I don't well, that's not true. I X out one guy. I know one guy I'm biased against that I never play, Keegan Bradley.
Keegan, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but besides that, I don't X out anybody, and period. And if they're up there high in the model, I trust it blindly. So don't you think that there's some advantage, with Frank Gore at the top of NFL models? I know too much to play Frank Gore. It's not in me to play Frank Gore. But when Bernhard Langer is at the top of the golf model in the Masters, I was well, I don't really know much about this guy, but he's at the top of the model. Let me play Bernhard Langer. And all the golf people are you're insane. You're playing Bernhard Langer. The dude finished fourth or something totally insane. So I think not having any biases, blindly trusting the model. And I will say that it's easier to do that in a sport where, like we said, it's totally independent. Bernhard Langer is not an opportunity question. He's going to have the opportunity to play 72 holes just like anybody else. Whereas a 40-year-old guy playing basketball is not going to have that opportunity. But yeah, I think not having biases, coming in cold like that is some advantage, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just sort of a thing about data is anytime we analyze data, the first question is what is the confidence level that we have in this data? And for a sport like NFL or really or MLB, the answer is you can have some confidence in it, but for a batter in MLB that's only going to have 4 at bats, it's sort of you can't really have that much confidence in it because there's so much volatility. Whereas PGA, you're right. You're going to have guys that are guaranteed at least 2 days, and if they play well, which you can have at least some sort of confidence in, are going to play the full round. And then you don't have the other variables that muddy up the data, like late scratches and how that affects everyone else, because NBA has correlations. If DeMarcus Cousins goes out, that doesn't just mean get DeMarcus Cousins out of your lineup. That means, okay, you might need to get Rudy Gay in your lineup or Kosta Koufos in your lineup. And yeah, you're right. It's just sort of it's a little bit easier, I guess.
It's way easier. Yeah. And yeah, I think using the models for PGA to generate, I don't multi-enter tournaments at all for the other sports. I pretty much make one lineup or 2 lineups. For basketball, I really just make one lineup. For football, sometimes I'll make 20, but I don't use a lineup generator. I kind of make them by hand, but kind of getting more comfortable with generating multiple lineups, I think, could give me an advantage if trying to think something big in NFL. And obviously, an NFL has the biggest prize pools. And I think that just from a game selection perspective, I think as DFS moves along, head-to-heads and 50-50s and double-ups are going to get tougher and GPPs are going to get softer. And just from talking to random people that see me and see what shirt I'm wearing, they're like, oh, yeah, I'll try to turn 20 into $1 million, but these people aren't going to try to turn 109 into 200. They don't care about that, So the random people are all going to be playing GPPs. They're not going to be playing the cash game. So I think, trying to be a better GPP player is something that I've been concentrating on. And I think, playing with the models in PGA can definitely help.
So, so that's interesting. So do you think, and actually we actually talked about this in our podcast just last night, the PGA podcast for what will be tomorrow's Dean and DeLuca, depending on when you're listening to this, which could be a year from now. Last year's Dean and DeLuca, 2016 Invitational. But yeah, Colin Davey, who's our PGA director, said that there's been multiple weeks in the last sort of couple months where he has, like you have with Frank Gore, just X'd a guy out. And just said, no, I know better. I'm so ingrained into the data and the models and the sport, because this is my sport, that I know that guy's not any good. And he's readily admitted that he's missed on some guys, right. Whether it's a Bernhard Longer or whatever. So do you think that potentially that's going to make you look a little bit deeper into guys that you might X out in NBA or NFL?
I could look into Frank Gore all day and I would still never play him. You know what I mean? Sure. So I don't know. I can't. That's why maybe I'm not destined to be a GPP player in football or basketball. I just can't do it. I can't pull the trigger. And I think there's sharper, GPP players that understand fades and pivots and stuff like that. That I'm fine with. But playing guys who I think are total dust, I just can't do it. And I assume that golf people they think Bernhard Longer is total dust. And maybe he is. He just had a good week at the Masters. I know he crushes the Champions Tour, but I don't think that means very much. I mean, those guys are 70. Are you
going to play the Euro Tour at all?
I have one lineup for tomorrow because first, I think there might be some overlay. And second of all, obviously anytime there's a new sport, I think there's an edge to be had. And I don't know anything, but I heard Colin talking about Dredge or something like that. Or
Dredge, the ultimate European name.
Right.
Dredge. Yeah, he's somewhere just fishing off a dock in Ireland somewhere.
Yeah, so I have a lineup. I think I have Molinari as the guy I spent a lot on, and then I have Dredge, and then I have 4 other guys I've never heard of. But like I said, it doesn't matter. I think that I using the data on labs. Anytime I'll do take a plus EV spot. So yes, I am playing the Euro Tour. No, I'm not waking up at 2, but I will be up at 5 for French Open and my kids. So I'll be there, midway through round 1 out there in the BMW.
Yeah, I hear you. So I guess sort of progressing in this podcast, I want to give some people some practical takeaways of if your sport is whatever maybe NFL, NBA, what can you practically do to get better at your craft? And some ideas I think that we've maybe hit on, and maybe we can just briefly touch on before we end this podcast. I do want to sort of keep it in a not necessarily short, but in a digestible sort of time period. But what are some practical takeaways? You talked about just staying up with a sport like the NFL is just sort of very, very critical. But I think maybe another thing is to do what you're doing for PGA, and taking a chance on a sport that, even if not even necessarily that you have like super interested, like I'm sure that you're more interested in NBA and NFL than you are in PGA, but you're sort of forcing yourself to go through the process of analyzing data and playing the slates and all that entails in the process of PGA DFS, because it could potentially not only be profitable for PGA, but make you a more profitable player for NFL. So do you think that sort of idea of just forcing yourself to stretch and grow in your DFS realm by playing other sports is something that will help other users?
Yeah, I think a couple things. So definitely playing other sports, for sure, but playing like formats outside of your comfort zone, I think can help. So like play some 3-mans, play some 5-mans, see what kind of lineups people run in those. Play some 10-mans where 3 people get paid. I think those are really good. Play 100-mans, play the 100-man 50-50s, play the higher stakes 50-50s and see what's going on there. Try the lower stakes, like just experimenting with all that stuff from an overreaching perspective. And one thing that I for sure think, people that are listening to this are probably serious about DFS. If you are serious about DFS, game selection is like my pet peeve, number one thing. Off season, I've been spending all kinds of time looking at my data from both NBA and NFL, breaking it down by site, breaking it down by buy-in, breaking it down by game format, head-to-head, 50-50, 10-man, 5-man, GPP, qualifiers, like thinking about where I should get my money in, how much I want to spend each week, like figuring all that stuff out before the season starts, figuring out what your role is going to be for NFL, like, excuse me, all that stuff. If you want to be good and be in the black in your ROI is so massive. I mean, people think this is all just about picking players. Like, to me, game selection is at least 50% of what's going on if you really want to end up in the black. Like, if you just play the millionaire maker every week, I can assure you that you're a huge favorite to end up a loser at the end of the year. But you can go way deeper than that and figure out what games you should be playing in. So that's just kind of like overreaching. For me, 2 big things: game selection and just trying different formats and getting data there and seeing what works.
Yeah, it seems like people, and I myself, I'm not going to just insult people and not, turn it back on me. When I first started playing DFS, I had a breakdown of sort of 80-20. I took the broad advice of what you should do in cash versus GPPs. 80% of your bankroll in cash, and then 20% in GPPs, and to mortgage, 1% of your overall bankroll on a nightly basis, sort of depending on sport. All those things that you will read in bankroll articles all over the DFS industry is what I did. And really only until, after a couple of seasons where, I really had to sit down and say, okay, what am I actually good at? Like,
right.
And I think it's like it's not only like what you're good at. I think it really affects, or it's really like your personality too. Like, people are just wired differently. Some people think in GPP thoughts, and some people are just more geared towards they like safety, and and they just think optimally, as opposed to. And I know some guys that play DFS that cannot make a cash game to save their lives. Like, right. they just can't do it. It makes them uncomfortable. And I know some guys who are the opposite. So it seems like that's a huge edge, just getting to know yourself in the off
Weird.
season, like just like taking a step back and saying, what am I good at? Whether you're looking at data, like I agree that you should look at data and look and say, okay, where actually am I most profitable in contests? But also just sort of like, what do I enjoy playing? What do I spend the most time on researching? What sort of contests like really get me going? And then sort of adapting from there, because I think that those sort of factors are going to overall lead to profitability.
Oh, for sure. And like, yeah, my data shows that like I should almost only be playing head to head and 10-man leagues. So like maybe
and my data is the opposite.
Right, you should be playing GPPs, really.
Yeah, you would crush me in.
Yeah. So yeah, then you should, you know what I mean? Like, like there's no reason to try to force it. I don't know, like I'm trying to be better in GPPs just because, as I mentioned before, I think that's where the softer games are going to be, but I'm not going to force it. Like last year, I really tried to force qualifying for the DraftKings live final, and I just got absolutely smoked. Like the closest I came was fourth in a qualifier, but I spent so much money trying to get there and didn't do it. And this year, I'm like promising myself that I'm not going to try to chase that. So just like things like that, I think are huge. Other practical things you can do in the off season for NFL and NBA. I think we mentioned just following things as closely as possible, and I think playing season long actually helps a lot for NFL. Like MFLs, you can do them as cheap as $10, and you see where people where consensus is on people. Like I was kind of shocked that people aren't really high on Ryan Matthews at all. People are really low on Jeremy Langford. People are really high on AJ Green, which I like. People are really high on Keenan Allen, and you can find out all these things by playing season long and by playing MFLs and doing drafts and doing mock drafts and seeing where rankings are and stuff like that. So I certainly think there's value in that. But coming up with your own opinions, like I didn't think that I had like a hot take on Ryan Matthews, but apparently I do, and now I know. So like things like that, I think for sure can help playing season long.
Yeah, in my mind, I have this article already written in my head before the NFL season upcoming in a couple months, where I correlate because we've had a couple years of MFL going on now. Where I'm going to correlate MFL data, like regular, just like ESPN and Yahoo season long ownership percentage and draft ADP stuff, and correlate that to ownership percentages in like the first 3 weeks. Because I'm really curious to see. Where those things end up, because I do think that a lot of this, I do think there's certain things like we've said, like getting to know yourself, learning what contests that you're better in. Those are just sort of broad things that are going to make you a better DFS player in general. And there's other sort of things that we've mentioned, keeping up with the NFL and other stuff is going to help you probably in the long run, but more maybe in the first couple of weeks. So I'm curious that there's sort of you can learn both sort of things. The short term and the long term. I think in the off season you can make yourself better.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And people, I don't know if they want to roster the guys on their season long team, but like the players that were hyped before the season are going to be highly owned in the first few weeks. There's no doubt. Like the players that everybody was all excited about, Monty Ball like 3 years ago or whatever. Those guys are going to be highly owned for sure in the first few weeks. Really almost no matter what their matchup is, unless their matchup is like totally brutal. Yeah,
that's actually a good thing. Yeah, it's sort of hype or ADP versus first week matchup. That's sort of an interesting study.
Yeah.
Are you in the mindset, and we'll end this in just a second. Are you in the mindset that like what you've been doing in PGA, that you can really only research and really learn stuff if you have skin in the game? Like obviously I know, because I've been talking to you, that you actually play PGA contests. You're not just like entering a free contest and saying, oh, I'm researching. But do you think that, like, I know, and maybe this is a getting to know yourself thing for me, if I'm entering a free contest versus a paid contest, even no matter what it is, even if it's just $3, I'm going to spend so much more time on the $3. And maybe that's the getting to know yourself. But for me, I think having a little skin in the game, even if it's just $1 investment, I think is important to learn sort of about yourself and about a new sport that could potentially help you in your sport?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think playing within your role is so important. Within your bankroll is so important, and like I see it in poker all the time. Like people can't play their best. People try to like play higher stakes than they should, and they end up playing terribly. When I know that they can play way better, and if you don't play within your role in DFS, within your bankroll in DFS, you can end up doing like chalky things in GPPs just to try to be safe. But yeah, playing within your bankroll can also mean the other way, meaning, if your bankroll is $10, then you take one shot in the quarter arcade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Literally all the way down to 25 cents. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, free contest to me, I never really understood that, like play money on like poker sites. Like I never really understood that. I know there's like, actually somebody was telling me like a couple of weeks ago, there's actually a market for real money. Like people pay real dollars for play money poker chips, which blew my mind. But anyways, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I think that, I mean, you can play down to 25 cents on DraftKings. I think that, makes a lot of sense, even if your bankroll is only $10, which is totally fine. Like if your roll is $10, then play the quarter arcade.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement that having some sort of skin in the game, no matter what it is, even if it's only 25 cents, it sort of equips your brain to take things more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely in agreement on that. All right, well, we'll sort of wrap it up there. But I think we're sort of in agreement here, and I think we came to some good practical ideas. Is keep up with your sports. The drafts, free agency matters, and especially for a sport like NFL, you can't just figure it out a day before the first slate of the season. You're going to be way behind. So keep up with it. Follow your sites, play season long, do all that stuff, and keep up with it because it's going to lead to profitability in your favorite sport in DFS. And also get to know yourself. Figure out what your personality is and where you excel in contests and just sort of just self introspection. I think is a good thing to do. All right, so we'll end it there. But quickly, Adam, this is going to be something that we'll keep on pushing even after the NBA playoffs are over. So I wanted to set you up to potentially either have all the glory or have people make fun of you. Who's your NBA champion for 2016?
It would be really easy right now to say the Thunder, when the Thunder are up 3-1 and the Cavs are on the, not on the ropes, but looking really bad the last two games. But I ride or die with LeBron James, man. I mean, he's been who I think is the best player in the NBA for the last, decade. Like, it's just so unbelievable on both.
Maybe ever, yeah.
Yeah, maybe ever. Like, So, I'm going to ride or die with LeBron, even though I think you could probably, I don't know what the odds are now. I bet the Thunder right now are probably the favorites to win the title right now.
I think the Cavs and Thunder were just about even. And then it was the Warriors, and then it was the Raps. Even though the Raps have it tied as of this podcast, they were still underdogs to the Warriors, which is telling. Yeah, the bold call is the Raptors to win.
Oh God, no.
Can't take DeMar DeRozan and Terrence Ross.
No.
Even my boy Bismack Biyombo,
dude,
so good, so good.
Everybody who plays DFS knows, you know what I mean? Like, everybody knows that Bismack is actually good. I mean, he beasted every time that Jonas was out this year.
Yeah, no, he's so good. I actually, and I promise we'll end this in a second. Actually, before I started with FantasyLabs. I was doing some Hornet stuff and got to talk to players and cover them and got to talk to him in preseason and stuff. Anyway, so I was talking to Bismack Biyombo, and this is when he first got his number changed to the number 8. And I was talking to him, and he told me that the reason he wanted the number 8 is because if you flip it on its side, it's infinity, and there's no limit to life. And I was like, Bismack, you're just the greatest person in the world.
What a stud, man. Yeah.
So good. I have a soft spot in my heart for Bismack.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, a lot of good things happening in DFS and in NBA. Obviously, we're both NBA fans for sure. As you can tell by this podcast, that was not supposed to be specifically about NBA, but we keep on talking about it.
So good. It's really the best sport. It's not even close. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, NFL is fun, PGA is growing on me, but NBA, it's like head and shoulders above every other league.
Yeah. It's where our hearts are for sure. All right. Well, we'll end it there. Adam, thanks for joining me, guys. I hope that you like the podcast about what to do when your DFS sport was out of season. We'll have some more of these podcasts coming up on sort of practical things that you can do to improve your DFS game. And Adam will, of course, have you on as much as you'll come on.
I mean, I got nothing to do, so yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. All right, well, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.